Have you ever had that moment when your own family looks at you like you're nothing? That crushing feeling when the people who should love you unconditionally instead treat you like an unwelcome stranger? I still remember the exact second my mother's voice cut through the elegant birthday party, declaring me dead to my family in front of everyone who mattered in our community. The room went silent. 100 pairs of eyes burned into me. My father looked away. My golden child brother studied his expensive shoes. And me? I stood there, humiliated, my carefully wrapped gift still clutched in my trembling hands. But what happened next changed everything. My name is Lena Whitaker, and I'm 32 years old. If you've ever felt like the black sheep, the family disappointment, or the child who could never measure up, no matter how hard you tried, this story might feel familiar. Because for my entire life, I was the family failure, until the night I wasn't anymore. Have you ever fantasized about the perfect moment to prove everyone wrong? Well, I lived it. And let me tell you, it was both more devastating and more liberating than I ever imagined. If you've experienced family rejection, please hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me when I say that sometimes the family that throws you away is doing you the biggest favor of your life, even if it takes years to realize it. Growing up in Maplewood, my family was picture perfect from the outside. Our two-story colonial with its pristine white trim and perfectly manicured lawn was the envy of the neighborhood. My father, Gregory Whitaker, commanded respect as the high school principal. Everyone knew him, everyone respected him. My mother, Vivian, ruled the local garden club with immaculate nails and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. And then there was my brother Owen, the golden child, the star quarterback, the straight-A student who could do no wrong. And then there was me. From my earliest memories, I knew I didn't fit. While Owen played football, I sketched the players from the bleachers. While my mother arranged flowers, I painted them. While my father discussed college applications with Owen, I dreamed of art studios in faraway cities. "She's just going through a phase," my mother would tell visitors whenever they noticed my drawings displayed on the refrigerator. She'd quickly change the subject to Owen's latest touchdown or academic award. Those drawings would mysteriously disappear within days, replaced by Owen's perfect test scores. I remember the moment I first understood what I was in my family, a disappointment. I was 8 years old, clutching a blue ribbon and certificate from the regional youth art competition. My watercolor painting of our backyard garden had won first place. My art teacher had driven me home, gushing about my extraordinary talent and natural eye for composition. "Mrs. Whitaker, Lena has real potential," Ms. Rivera told my mother at the door. "I've rarely seen such intuitive understanding of color and form in someone so young." My mother's smile was tight. "That's nice. Thank you for bringing her home." The door closed. My mother looked down at my ribbon and certificate. "That's nice, Lena, but you really should focus on your math homework. Art won't get you anywhere." She handed back my certificate and walked away, already dialing Owen's baseball coach about the upcoming tournament. I stood in the hallway, my precious blue ribbon suddenly feeling worthless. That night, I cried myself to sleep, the certificate hidden under my pillow where it wouldn't bother anyone. That pattern repeated throughout my childhood. When I was 12, my painting was selected for a traveling exhibition of young artists. My father couldn't attend the opening because Owen had a football game. My mother came for exactly 15 minutes, standing awkwardly by the refreshment table before claiming she had a headache. "Maybe you should try sports," she suggested on the drive home. "Owen made 3 touchdowns tonight. The whole school was cheering for him." Meanwhile, Owen flourished under their adoration. When he crashed my father's car at 16, after sneaking out to a party, my parents grounded him for a week, but my father took him car shopping for his own vehicle the following month. "Boys will be boys," my father chuckled. When I got a B in algebra that same year despite tutoring and late-night study sessions, my mother slammed my report card on the kitchen counter. "Lena, why can't you be more like your brother? He never brings home anything less than an A. What college will want you with grades like these?" By high school graduation, the roles in our family were firmly established. Owen was the success story, and I was the problem child. The fact that I graduated with honors in art and literature meant nothing compared to Owen's football scholarship and class presidency. Have you ever felt like no matter what you accomplished, it would never be enough? Like you were competing in a race where the finish line kept moving just for you? That was my entire childhood, striving for approval that never came. Senior year marked the first major crossroads of my life. I'd been accepted to the prestigious Westridge School of Fine Arts, a dream come true. Only 3% of applicants received acceptance letters. My portfolio had impressed the admissions committee so much they'd offered a partial scholarship. I still remember sitting at our dining room table, acceptance letter in hand, heart pounding with excitement. My parents sat across from me, faces unreadable. "We're not wasting money on a hobby," my mother said flatly, after I'd explained the opportunity. "You'll go to community college and study something practical. Business, maybe, or education, like your father." "But this is one of the best art schools in the country," I pleaded. "They rarely offer scholarships to first-year students. This is a huge opportunity." My father sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "Lena, be realistic. What kind of career will you have with an art degree? Struggling to pay rent? Working in coffee shops? That's not the future we want for you." "It's the future I want for me," I whispered. "Well, when you're paying for it yourself, you can make that decision," my mother snapped. "But we won't finance a dead-end degree." The next day, Owen announced he was switching his major to real estate and finance. My parents immediately offered to help with the additional tuition costs. That night, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. If my parents wouldn't support my dreams, I'd find a way to make them happen myself. I spent the next year working 2 jobs, waitressing at Delmonico's during the day and stocking shelves at Megamart at night. I lived on ramen and coffee, saved every penny, and applied for every scholarship and grant I could find. By the time I turned 19, I had enough for my first semester's tuition and a security deposit on the tiniest studio apartment you've ever seen. The day I moved out, my mother said, "You're making a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life." I often thought about those words during the hard years that followed. There were nights I came home from double shifts, my feet blistered and back aching, wondering if she was right. My apartment was barely 400 square feet, with a kitchenette that consisted of a hot plate and a mini fridge. The bathroom sink doubled as my art supply cleaning station. My bed folded into the wall to make space for my easel during the day. But every morning when I woke up to sunlight streaming through my single window, illuminating my latest canvas, I knew I'd made the right choice. This tiny space was mine. My art was mine, my life was mine. Meanwhile, Owen's life continued its perfect trajectory. He joined our father's friend's real estate firm right out of college and was making 6 figures by 25. He bought a house in the same neighborhood as our parents, got engaged to a woman named Tessa, who looked like she'd stepped out of a Pottery Barn catalog, and became the toast of every family gathering. Those gatherings became increasingly difficult for me to attend. My parents rarely called except to remind me about upcoming family events, usually with the passive-aggressive addition of, "If you're not too busy with your art thing." When I did visit, I was treated like an unwelcome guest. Conversations would halt when I entered rooms. Relatives would ask about my hobby with thinly veiled pity. My mother would introduce Owen as our son, the real estate developer, and me as simply our daughter, Lena. If you're still watching, and this resonates with you, take a moment to hit that like button and share in the comments if you've experienced similar family dynamics. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes them a little easier to bear. By my late 20s, I'd settled into a routine. I was still waiting tables, but at a higher-end restaurant that paid better tips. I taught evening art classes at the community center, and every spare moment was devoted to my painting. I'd developed a distinctive style, vibrant urban landscapes that captured the hidden beauty of forgotten city corners. I'd had a few small exhibitions at local galleries, sold a handful of paintings, and built a modest portfolio. Then came the invitation to my father's 60th birthday party. My mother called personally, unusual enough that I immediately sensed an ulterior motive. "It's going to be quite the event," she said, her voice carrying that familiar note of superiority. "Over 100 guests at the Maplewood Country Club. Owen has arranged everything. You will make an effort to dress appropriately, won't you?" I almost declined on the spot. The thought of facing the entire Whitaker social circle, all those people who'd watched me grow up in Owen's shadow, made my stomach churn. But something stopped me. Maybe it was hope that things could be different. Maybe it was the desire to show them I was doing fine on my own terms. Or maybe it was simply that despite everything, he was still my father. "I'll be there," I said. The night of the party arrived, a warm June evening with just enough breeze to rustle the oak trees lining the country club drive. I'd splurged on a simple blue dress, nothing fancy but certainly appropriate for the occasion. It was a gift from my best friend, Priya, who knew how much the event was stressing me. "You look beautiful," she assured me as she dropped me off. "Remember, you have nothing to prove to these people." But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. I was 20 minutes late, unavoidable after my shift ran long, and my mother spotted me the moment I entered the ballroom. Her eyes narrowed, lips tightening into that familiar expression of disappointment as she made her way across the room. "Lena, you're late," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I had to work," I replied, forcing a smile. "The restaurant was short-staffed." She sighed dramatically. "Of course. Well, try not to embarrass us tonight." Those words stung more than they should have after all these years. I was 32 years old, living independently, pursuing my passion. Yet 5 seconds in my mother's presence reduced me to that insecure little girl again. The ballroom was stunning, decorated in silver and blue with crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the crowd. Laughter and conversation filled the air, punctuated by the clink of champagne glasses and the subtle notes of a string quartet in the corner. Everyone who was anyone in Maplewood had turned out to celebrate my father. I spent most of the evening alone, sipping club soda at a corner table and watching as Owen and Tessa worked the room. They moved effortlessly through the crowd, Tessa's diamond engagement ring catching the light with every graceful gesture. Owen had his arm perpetually around her waist, proudly introducing his fiancée to colleagues and family friends. My father gave a speech thanking everyone for coming. He spoke about his career in education, his pride in the community, and his hopes for the future. He thanked my mother for 40 years of marriage. He thanked Owen for organizing the party. He did not mention me. After the speech, Owen presented his gift, a set of premium golf clubs that must have cost thousands. The applause was thunderous. My father embraced him, both men blinking back tears. Then, as servers brought out an elaborate 3-tiered cake, my mother called for a family photo. "Gregory, Owen, Tessa, come here," she directed. After a moment, she glanced around and added, almost as an afterthought, "Lena, you too." I hesitated, but she waved me over impatiently. As we arranged ourselves around my father, Owen and Tessa to his right, my mother to his left, me awkwardly positioned at the edge, she leaned close and whispered, "Try to look happy, Lena, for once." The photographer counted down. 3, 2, 1. The flash went off, capturing what appeared to be the perfect family moment. After the photo, I tried to mingle, to prove to myself, if no one else, that I belonged in this room. But every conversation followed the same painful pattern. Old family friends would ask what I was doing these days, their interest genuine, until I mentioned my art. "I'm painting full-time now," I'd say. "I've had a few small gallery showings and I teach art classes at the community center." Their eyes would glaze over, smiles becoming fixed. "That's nice," they'd reply, before inevitably spotting someone more important across the room. "Excuse me, I should say hello too." And then I'd be alone again. It was during the gift opening that everything fell apart. My father sat at the head table, opening presents with appropriate expressions of delight. Golf accessories, rare whiskey, vintage books. Each gift met with genuine appreciation. Owen approached with a large envelope tied with a blue ribbon. "This one's special, Dad," he said, grinning. My father opened it carefully. Inside was a deed to a vacation cabin on Lake Michigan, a property my father had admired for years. "It's in both our names, Dad," Owen explained proudly. "A place for family getaways, fishing trips, future grandkids." He winked at Tessa, who blushed appropriately. The room erupted in cheers and applause. My father stood, visibly moved, and embraced Owen again. "This is too much, son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Nothing's too much for you, Dad," Owen replied. In that moment, my mother turned to me, her voice icy. "Did you bring a gift, Lena?" All eyes shifted to me. I nodded, suddenly conscious of the small, simply wrapped package in my hands. It had seemed meaningful when I'd prepared it. Now it felt hopelessly inadequate. I approached the table, handing my father the box. "Happy birthday, Dad." He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a hand-painted portrait of himself as a young man, standing proudly in front of our old family home. I'd worked from a photograph I'd found, spending countless hours capturing the hopeful expression of the young teacher who hadn't yet become the distant father I knew. He looked at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable, then set it aside. "Thank you, Lena," he said, his tone polite but distant. My mother rolled her eyes, not bothering to hide her disdain. "You always have to be different, don't you?" I felt my cheeks burn. "It's what I do best." That's when she snapped. Years of disappointment, frustration, and resentment erupted in a moment of public fury. "You know what, Lena? We're tired of your attitude," she hissed, her voice rising. "You're dead to us." The words hung in the air, shocking in their venom. The room fell instantly silent, 100 conversations halting mid-sentence. "You never listen, you never fit in, and you never will," she continued, too far gone to notice or care about our audience. "Maybe it's time you stopped coming to these events." I stood frozen, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The room blurred around me, faces swimming in and out of focus. I felt 100 eyes on me, some sympathetic, most uncomfortable, all witnessing my most painful family moment made public. Owen looked away, suddenly fascinated by the pattern on the carpet. My father sat motionless, saying nothing, his silence a confirmation that carried more weight than any words could have. In that moment, everything crystallized. Years of trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. Years of measuring myself against impossible standards. Years of shrinking myself to fit into a family that was never going to make space for me. I stood there, heart pounding, tears threatening. For a moment, I considered running out. The easy escape, the expected response. The Lena they knew would flee in humiliation. But then something inside me shifted. A lifetime of suppressed strength suddenly surfaced. I was done being ashamed of who I was, done apologizing for my passions, done seeking approval from people who had decided long ago that I wasn't worth their pride. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and looked my mother directly in the eyes. "You know what, Mom? You're right. I am different, and I'm proud of it." She scoffed, gesturing dismissively. "Proud of what? Waiting tables? Painting pictures no one buys?" I smiled, finally feeling free. "Actually, Mom, I have something to share." The room remained silent, the tension palpable. I reached into my purse and pulled out a letter I'd received just 3 days earlier. A letter I'd been saving to read privately, to savor alone because I'd grown accustomed to celebrating my victories without family. "This is from the Whitmore Gallery," I said, my voice steady and clear. "They're hosting a solo exhibition of my work next month. They're also buying 3 of my paintings for their permanent collection." I paused, watching my mother's expression shift from disdain to confusion. "And this," I held up another envelope, "is a check for $50,000, my first real commission from the Halliday Foundation. They've asked me to create a mural for their new art center downtown." The room gasped collectively. My mother's face went pale. Owen stared, open-mouthed. My father looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. I've also been accepted into the National Artists Fellowship. I'll be traveling to Europe next year to study with some of the best artists in the world. Only 5 American artists were selected. I allowed myself a small smile. It turns out art can get you somewhere after all. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. It was Mr. Rivera, my old art teacher's husband. Then Mrs. Thomason, my father's former colleague. Then others joined in. Priya, who had returned to pick me up, hugged me fiercely. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. A few of Dad's old friends came over to congratulate me, asking about the exhibition, expressing genuine interest in my work. Some even requested invitations to the opening. My mother stood rigid, her social mask completely shattered. "This doesn't change anything," she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. I smiled gently. "It changes everything, for me." If you've ever had to find your own path despite family pressure, hit that like button and subscribe. Everyone's journey is different, But there's something universal about the struggle to become yourself in the face of others' expectations. I left the party early, but not before exchanging contact information with several guests who suddenly seemed to see me with new eyes. As I walked toward the exit, Owen intercepted me. "Lena, wait. I had no idea you were doing so well. That's that's really amazing." "Thanks," I said, not stopping. "Look, about what Mom said." I turned to face him. "Which part? The part where she declared me dead to the family? Or all the years before when you stood by and watched her tear me down?" He had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you." "Yes, you should have." I softened slightly at his genuine remorse. "But that's not on you, Owen. We were both kids shaped by the same parents. The difference is, you were shaped to believe you deserved everything, and I was shaped to believe I deserved nothing. Can we talk sometime? Maybe get coffee?" I considered this. Maybe. But not right now. Right now, I need some space. My father called the next day. It was the first time he'd called me, not my mother calling on behalf of both of them, in years. "Lena," he said, his voice hesitant, "I wanted to apologize for last night. What your mother said was unacceptable." "But you didn't stop her," I pointed out quietly. A long pause. "No, I didn't. I've failed you many times over the years, and I'm sorry for that." "Thank you for saying that. Your painting, the portrait you gave me, it's remarkable. I have it in my study now." I closed my eyes, unprepared for how much that simple acknowledgement would affect me. "I'm glad you like it. And congratulations on your exhibition and fellowship. I'd like to come if that's all right with you. I'll send you an invitation," I promised. My mother didn't speak to me for months. When she finally did call, it wasn't to apologize, but to ask if I could paint a portrait of her garden club for their anniversary celebration. "I'd be willing to pay whatever your usual rate is," she added, as if this were a tremendous concession. I politely declined. "I'm sorry, Mom, but my schedule is fully booked for the next year." This was actually true. The exhibition at Whitmore Gallery was a turning point in my career. Every painting sold, and I was featured in several art magazines. Commission requests poured in faster than I could fulfill them. I hired an assistant, rented a proper studio, and finally quit my waitressing job. The fellowship took me to Paris, then Florence, then Barcelona. I studied with masters, developed new techniques, and found my artistic voice growing stronger and more distinctive. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who spoke my language, who understood my passion, who valued what I had to offer. I kept in touch with my father. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was evolving. He made efforts, real efforts, to understand my world. He visited my studio, asked questions about my process, even attended a gallery opening in New York, where he proudly introduced himself to everyone as Lena Whitaker's father. With my mother and Owen, I established clear boundaries. I no longer attended family gatherings where I wasn't genuinely wanted. I didn't subject myself to passive-aggressive comments or backhanded compliments. I engaged on my terms, or not at all. It wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation and self-respect, about recognizing that while you can't choose your blood relations, you can choose your family, the people who support you, believe in you, and love you for exactly who you are. 3 years after that fateful birthday party, I received an invitation to Owen and Tessa's housewarming. They'd built a new home, even larger and more impressive than their first. Against my better judgment, I decided to attend, curious if anything had really changed. My mother greeted me with stiff politeness. My father embraced me warmly. Owen gave me a tour, proudly pointing out the formal living room, where they'd hung one of my paintings, purchased, I later learned, at considerable expense from a collector who'd acquired it at my first major exhibition. "It's the centerpiece of the room," he said, a hint of awe in his voice. "Everyone asks about it." Later, I overheard my mother talking to her friends, her voice carrying that familiar note of superiority. "Yes, that's Lena's work. She's quite successful now, you know. Her paintings sell for 5 figures." I smiled to myself. recognizing that in her own way she was finally proud of me, not because she understood or appreciated my art, but because my success had currency in her world. It was as close to acceptance as we would ever come. If you're still with me, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. I share these stories because I believe there's power in knowing we're not alone in our struggles with family expectations and finding our own path. Looking back now, I'm grateful for the pain. It made me stronger, more determined, more resilient. I learned that vindication doesn't always come in the form of revenge. It comes from living your truth, succeeding on your own terms, and refusing to let others define your worth. At my father's birthday party, I was told I was dead to my family. But in that moment of rejection, I found liberation. Sometimes the people who throw you away are unknowingly setting you free. The greatest revenge isn't making others sorry, it's making yourself happy. It's building a life so authentic and fulfilling that the approval you once desperately sought becomes entirely unnecessary. At that birthday party, when my mother declared me dead to the family, she unknowingly gave me the greatest gift of all, the permission to be fully, unapologetically alive on my own terms. And for that, I am strangely, belatedly grateful.